and welcome to Drummers Review. I'm Nolly, and today we're looking at a quartet of snares from Mapex. These are part of the Black Panther range, but specifically the new Design Lab series. Making up the 4 drums that we're reviewing, we've got the Heartbreaker, which is a 14 by 6 inch mahogany drum. We have the Equinox, which is a 14 by 5 inch maple drum. And we have 2 versions of the Cherry Bomb. One is a 14 by 6, the other is a 13 by 5.5, and they're both made from cherry wood. Each of these drums is designed to fulfill a very specific sonic concept, so we're going to go into a lot more detail about specifically what they're designed to do and whether they achieve that later on in this review. These drums come in right at the top of the Mapex snare drum range, with the Equinox coming in at £599 retail, the Heartbreaker is £539.99, and both the Cherry Bombs come in at $443.99. All of that's retail price. Let's take a deeper listen to how these drums sound and come back for some detailed discussion afterwards. Our initial impression of these drums is that they are really sleek, professional looking instruments. They've got a great satin finish which shows off the open wood grain, and that contrasts really nicely against the shiny metal hardware. Out of all these drums, the Equinox is probably the most visually distinctive. It's got quite noticeably offset lugs in order to get a good tuning range, even though it's only 5 inches deep. And on top of that, it's got the single flange copper hoops with hoop claws. The Heartbreaker and the Cherry Bomb are reasonably similar looking, with the Cherry Bomb having a lighter colored timber and chrome hardware, with the Heartbreaker's darker wood and brushed black chrome hardware gives it an overall more muted look. All of these drums feature Mapex sonic clear bearing edges at 45-degree cuts, with the exception of the snare bed side on the Equinox, which is cut at 35 degrees. The Equinox also comes with a different snare head, being a Remo fiber skin, where all the others come with an Ambassador X. Furthermore, all of these drums come with 16-strand Pure Sound Custom Pro steel wires. Each of these drums were designed with a specific goal in mind, defined by 3 adjectives known as a concept hybrid to the Mapex team. Let's start by looking at the Heartbreaker, of which the concept hybrid is dark, rustic, and throaty. Our impressions of this drum were certainly in keeping with that. It's got quite a dark sound. I'd describe it as fat, and without a particularly huge amount of presence to it. It's quite a warm and wet sound too. The only issue I had with this drum is I found it very difficult to get in tune. In fact, it never really settled, with a couple of the lugs having to be incredibly loose to get an even head tension. That was really a shame to me because I actually really liked what I was hearing in that drum. I think it could be a really good choice, as Mapex say, for people that like a more lo-fi or less punishing snare drum sound that could be suitable for alternative music styles. Moving on to the Equinox, here the design concept words are classic, bright and articulate. And again, I think they've really hit the nail on the head here. It certainly is an incredibly articulate drum. I think a lot of that is due in part to the fiber skin head, which has a very naturally muted sound. But overall, it's really quite astonishing just how dry center hits are with this drum, and that lends it a really nice articulation. I describe this drum as having a particularly clean sound, and it's worth noting that it's got a terrific rim shot too, no doubt thanks to those heavy-duty hoops. To us, the kind of sound that the Equinox has would be really great in a jazz setting, a big band setting. It's a loud drum that's going to cut through pretty much anything, yet at the same time possesses enough articulation and subtlety to be suitable for fusion or any kind of studio work that requires subtlety and articulation. Coming around to the 2 Cherry Bomb drums, these are described by Mapex as vintage, controlled and precise. One of the reasons behind that being that Cherry is a softer timber, and according to Mapex, this helps to absorb some of the higher overtones and leave you with a fatter, more fundamental focused sound. To me, the 14-inch was the pick of the 2, having a really nice attack to it, a lovely pop, a fatness there, a lot of presence, but not muddy at the same time. To me, the 13 perhaps suffered from being a little bit on the thinner end of things. However, I do feel like it could make a really good auxiliary snare drum, or perhaps for those of you that like a 13-inch drum tuned a little lower in its range, this could be a good option too. To me, these drums immediately evoke a pop or pop rock vibe, while the 13 strays far into funk territory too. These drums sound really good acoustically, they're very pleasant to listen to, and to me it could be a good drum for accompanying a singer-songwriter too. The only thing that leaves me a little bit puzzled is Mapex describing this as a vintagey sounding drum, because to me it definitely doesn't evoke that character. However, it's a really lovely sounding drum in its own right, and perhaps for me personally, the 14-inch was my favorite out of the set here. I have to say that I really like that Mapex have gone all out trying to meet specific design goals here. I think it's a really refreshing change to see people not trying to create jack-of-all-trades instruments, and certainly if you need a specific character, it's reassuring to be able to pick out a drum that you know is designed specifically for that. With that in mind though, I do feel like these drums have been let down just a little bit in terms of their execution. I've already mentioned the difficult time I had tuning the Heartbreaker, and I have to say the Cherry Bomb had the same issues. For me, those lugs felt very stiff and it was kind of difficult to know up from down. I found it took me a long time to settle those drums into their nice tuning range. The Equinox was a lot better in these regards though, and to me, out of the 4 drums, this is the one that's truly deserving of the high-end label and price tag. It's worth mentioning that while the snare strainer is a very smooth design, it also doesn't have much of a definitive click into place at the top of its travel. And we actually found that it popped off a couple of times while we were using it, until we really dialed in the strainer tension on both the strainer and butt ends. I have to say I really appreciate the amount of detail that Mapex has put into the literature that comes with these drums. It's really nice to go onto their site and see a huge list of design goals and features, way more than we've gone into in this review, even going as far as showing specific frequency ranges that they've sought to increase and decrease in order to meet these design goals. Given the amount of design and thought that's gone into this range, I do feel like these drums are priced appropriately, but I would love to see Mapex perhaps upping their quality control to ensure that these drums operate and tune up as well as they deserve to. To us, the Equinox and the 14-inch Cherry Bomb are the standouts in the pack. Why don't you let us know what you think in the comments section below? Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time at Drummers Review.